the show is so good is some of the line delivery is just fantastic with the humor. Yeah. Tat loves the one with the mirror. When, no.
The audio editing is so good.
So, okay, like Tat said, this is going to be a non-spoilery reaction. This is a re-reaction. So I feel like when we do post this anywhere, we're going to say re-reaction.
Yeah, so you're not safe from spoilers.
You're not safe, yeah.
If you haven't watched it, which I feel like most people have.
Yeah. And if you don't mind being spoiled, okay, or we suggest watch the whole show first. They are short episodes. They're like, 11 minutes each. Yeah. You'll probably get through it within like 2 weeks.
You can.
You probably could if you binge it, but like, or do what we do, just leave everything on in the background. But like, why this show means a lot to us is because there's a lot of important things to kind of discuss, especially from Steven's perspective and Greg's perspective. Yeah. Like, obviously, there's certain things that do happen with Pearl later on that I am going to just go off on. Yes. And again, this is non-spoilerly, so please, and we're probably going to put this, you can say re-reaction when you post it. Like, I feel like there's so much to this that the show wanted to even tell, and they couldn't get into it because, again, we heard there was, like, funding issues, there was budget cuts, there was all these other things. So it's, like, why it's important is because not a lot of shows kind of touch base on the importance of what Steven Universe kind of captured. Especially when it came to generational type things. Now, as you could see from the get-go with Greg, and we're going to talk about him a lot, because there's a lot, we talk about this off screen
all the
with
time.
Him. Now, you can already tell this man's depressed. Like, he's going through, he is self-loathing of himself. He, obviously, certain aspects of him, he didn't want to grow up, and because of that, and also with Rose, there's a lot to talk about. I know a lot of people do like Rose.
We are not fans.
We are not fans of
at
Rose at all.
Especially after the movie.
Especially
after the fucking movie.
And you can honestly have a great argument saying, like, okay, like, you saw her story from, where you thought she was great to where she ended up. It's like, even so, there's even a lot to say about that with her and Greg, their dancing scene, all this. There's so much that happens that even with Steven's trauma, if you think about it, she basically just left and had Steven to pick up all these pieces. And it's like, after we watched this so many times, we try to see it a lot from her perspective. And it's not to say that we genuinely hate her and you can like her all you want, but when we go into detail about what she's done to even leaving what Steven had to deal with behind, I feel like it's unfair treatment for Steven to not at least address the trauma that he kind of went through. But more on that later, especially after seeing with the movie with that movie. And we're gonna be completely honest, but we'll get there. We want to talk about it now, but we'll get there. But to talk about with Greg, like, he's hoarding things. He's having the way he talks about himself, like, I was just this loser. Nobody cared. Nobody cared about my music. And again, it had a lot to do with the things that he grew up with, and he probably felt forced with how his family was. But even having arguments with that, what are you doing, Mr. Ball? Even having arguments with that with, like, Steven, when he was like, you had everything. So going into future-wise, you could tell that Greg is 100% a depressed man who never, but again, that didn't give him the excuse to kind of deal with what he deals with Steven later. He is good. Like,
we like him.
We love him.
We love him.
We love him.
But parenting and him are not a good mix.
And it's like, with him, he is the type of guy who, again, it's, sometimes there's people like this, sometimes there's not. Sometimes he just never grew up. And in a way, he is living in his glory days. But even if with his glory days, he kind of hated himself. Like, I feel a lot of things with Greg, I feel like he is somebody that never truly learned to love himself or appreciate himself, or in a way realize that you gotta stop being selfish and stop being acting like this self-deprecating guy, like and to realize that your son is there, your son is present. And you can also talk about, like, he could even be depressed even more, not getting involved because he doesn't know what to do with the gems. Right. But oh my God, there's more on that later though, because like when Rose explained all these things. But again, you could like these characters as much as you want, but as we always say, why we like doing shows like this, and why even if characters that we do love, wouldn't you rather call somebody out for what they're doing, and that is a form of love? So when we call out Greg or we call out certain things, even what Steven does, it's like it is coming from a place of love, just like we said when we're redoing fairy tale reactions. But for Greg though, like you could see, like, especially with the hoarding and everything and how he lives in those days.
And sleeping all the time,
He is depressed. Very much so depressed, and a lot of the characters are.
Yeah, like, honestly, yeah.
And it's in a way, it's like, yes, he's gonna have to learn to grow up. I don't know if Future's gonna continue. I don't know where Lars's show's gonna be.
When is that coming out?
I don't know. But all I do know is that I feel like, especially with Future, there was no definite end.
Not for Steven.
Not
for Steven. Oh my god. And I need more for him.
I know. And I feel like, especially with him and Greg's relationship, I do, he's stretching. I do want to see more of. Yeah. Because a lot was called out. Especially with that, oh my god, that's going to be the 2-hour discussion.
Yeah, I know.
When he basically, he detaches himself and you hear the ringing noise. And it's just Steven just letting him talk and letting him talk. Yeah. And you're like, oh my god. And you could tell that, when people do make shows, it comes from either experience or it comes from knowing someone that went through it. And that scene in particular is so powerful because it feels so real. So even now, with these first 2 episodes, Steven being, I think he's 11 or 12 at this point, he's with Cookie Cat. He doesn't want to see it leave. He loves he loves it. Again, that probably was out for years before even with him, and he's such an old soul that he's gonna like cling to things that probably like older.
He has attachment issues for sure.
That's the thing, and it's never like, I feel like, because they all kind of they all treat him in the way where it's like Pearl's the helicopter parent. Amethyst is like either the cool next door neighbor or like the cool aunt or the cool cousin.
How old is she? I know she's younger. I don't.
She is younger. Yeah. And then even with Garnet's more of the like, I am intellectual and have this. But then in a way, the way they all did worship Rose, it's like they don't know how to necessarily treat him, especially because he's a human boy.
He was low-key thrown on to them.
Exactly.
Actually, he was thrown on to them.
And there's a scene when he's basically born. If you want to say that, when he was born, like even with Pearl, like, are you in there, Rose? So it's like it's a story of kind of, and a lot of people like, if you think about this, like when you're going in, sometimes you're like, oh, it's cute, okay, it's great. But this is a story of like everyone learning to kind of grow, even when you're older. It's not just like, it's not just in the perspective of Steven. It's also like helicopter parent needs to not be helicopter parent anymore. Amethyst has to, oh my god, Amethyst in general, when she's like, she also self-loathes herself. And then Garnet, obviously we'll get to that later because again, I don't want to spoil too much, but even though this is spoiler already, but it's like, it's a story of how they all have to kind of live without Rose being presently there while Steven is suffering, wanting to know more about his mother. So it's like when you watch the show, you don't want to just watch it from Steven's perspective. Right. And I think that's why it's so good, is because you get all these stories and then you realize, oh my god, like there's so much on the show that makes me uncomfortable, because it's like, especially with that one scene with Pearl, it's like dedication runs strong within her, and you could see when she's even trying to get along with Greg and everything, it's like they have to learn to overcome their differences, especially Pearl needs to learn to overcome her jealousy. Yeah. So why it's so good, why we're doing this, is because we want to have discussions about Steven Universe.
We just also miss watching this.
And we miss watching it. But like outside of that, like the first episode too, like he does have those attachment issues. He wants to make sure everything lasts forever. But it's also, it's a good thing to have that, because then you kind of know what you have to work on when you do get older. But Steven, he's such an old man. He's such an old soul.
He's so cute.
And there's a lot of kids that act like that. And it's good to see, because with him, he's just so positive and so bright, and how he treats everybody, and it's like, you could tell he makes everyone very happy. And what's good too is like, he in a way like makeshifts his way through life, as you saw even when they were like in the fucking wagon. Yeah. Like pulling probably ruining the streets, or even when he made like the whole the Cookie Cat backpack. Like, he makeshifts himself through life, and when he's a kid, he's like kind of like thinking of like, it's normal, it's fine, but he shouldn't have to do that when he gets older. Right. And that's why with Future, there's going to be so much to talk about. So much to talk about.
As much as I love it, I feel like I wish they didn't make it, because it made it worse.
I know. Because it called out things that you saw in the show.
That you saw, but you weren't necessarily confirmed. Yes. And then it was low-key oh my god. So much in that show.
And it really does make you think, like, is he going to get more? Is there going to be more to his story?
He needs a good ending, because he's such a good character. There's not a lot of characters like him. I know.
And it's like, he's like, even when you start seeing when he gets older, he doesn't want to let go of these types of things. And what's good about this show is it kind of goes full circle, where you get the references from these seasons that we're watching now later on. But other than that, it is just this is a joy of a show. It's dark at times, but it does still instill hope.
Yeah.
And even with the movie, you could tell like Steven gets depressed, and even when he says like, "Oh, you can't have all the lightness here and there," it's like you could tell that isn't him saying to like people could argue be like, "Oh my God, that's just him being negative." No, it's like it's showing growth in his character where he can't be that little kid anymore, but at the same time he's still depressed as fuck.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And he needs, in a way, he also needs to grow,
Yeah.
and that's what makes him a good character. Is like he doesn't have to be like this positive light all the time, but he also has to learn that you could still be hopeful in things. But again, like we just did, there's going to be a lot of discussions about Greg specifically and their relationship because, dang.
It's so much.
There's so much there.
Yeah.
So that's going to be our kind of way of doing reviews, is focusing more on their relationships than anything else, because we watched it so many times that there's once you watch it, you start like
it's not
obviously
about the plot.
It's not about the plot.
Yeah.
It's not even just about like, ooh, cool powers and this and that, like, oh, the gems, wow. It's about the relationships that these characters end up having, and we're gonna be completely honest because that's what we do here. But when we if you think we're offending a character, we're not.
Yeah.
We are very honest people. And sometimes we ourselves can be very harsh. But at the same time, it's coming from a place of love. It's not coming from a place of, ew, how do you like that character? We're not like
you
that.
You can like whoever you want. We can
exactly.
like whoever we want.
Yeah, and it's like there's going to be a lot to be said. But that's what makes this fun. And we also want to hear your thoughts on people as well, because we've seen people's thoughts on certain characters too, and we're like, good swing on that.
Yeah.
I could agree to. There's certain things that you could agree to disagree, or that you could actually change your mind about a character. We're also going to be asking a lot of details about certain things that we are still confused about till this day. And I know a lot of people are like heavy with the lore with Steven Universe, so we're going to ask a lot of questions. And if you guys can also answer that, because till this day, there's still questions that remain. But anyway, guys, I am Kat.
I'm Tat.
This is All Ages of Geek. God bless you all, and have an amazing day. Bye.